prophecy at all when we come on to discuss some of the other issues which I think we are going to face, as opposed to all these false, disasters. I mean, I was dreading that movie 2012 coming out, which is supposed to be based on the Mayan prophecies, but actually it only barely mentioned the Mayan calendar, in passing at the very start. It was just an excuse to start out on a disaster movie, but it had nothing to do with the prophecy at all. But that was a total wipeout of civilization entirely. But
I've seen.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, what I've seen lately basically is that people need that fix. They got to get those hormones going and everything, and with the fear and the suspense, and people are bored with their everyday lives. They haven't really tapped into that God within, which is just an outrageous experience, and so they're trying to get it through the theaters, and the movie theaters are giving the people what they want, which is these crazy scenarios. But if everybody is focusing in that direction, then they just might magnetize that event to them.
Well, yes, and I think I made a similar point to that when I was down at your conference last year, because not in 2009 but 2008, because we all know, from quantum physics, even if we just have heard of the term, that whatever we absolutely profoundly and deeply accept, we're going to magnetize to us. And for a very rare occasion, the entire world last year was focused on disasters and recession and all that stuff. And it's almost inevitable if people are united in their focus. If you have 4 or 5 or 6 billion people all agreeing that something is the case, well, it's almost impossible for it not to happen then, irrespective of what the mix was actually going to throw up of its own accord, so to speak, before all this focus came in on it. So it's very hard for us to get into the mindset of realizing what quantum physics tells us, because we are not at all used to dealing with a situation where what happens inside in the mind is actually going to manifest in external reality. We always work the other way around. So it's quite an enormous shift for us to make that transition.
Yeah, I have a question about that. One of the things is that, we do create our own realities, and we do magnetize people and events to us according to our consciousness. That's, where all the latest quantum physicists are talking about. At the same time, there's a collective consciousness, with 6 or 7 billion people going in a direction that has momentum. You want to comment about that, and to go in a certain direction?
Yes, well, if, as I said, it's very rare that the whole world seems to be agreed on something. We're usually at odds with each other. We're sparring and fighting and warring and sometimes agreeing, but it's quite rare for a worldwide situation to be agreed on by so many. And I think that's the situation we're in right now, that we have accepted that we're into a period of recession or depression of some kind. And then, of course, that is going to make an already bad situation even worse. Now, it's going to be extremely difficult, to either educate people or to persuade them to do something once they are educated about holding fervently onto a different point of view and sticking with it, even though all of the evidence from outside that's pouring in on top of you seems to be saying the contrary. If we can only hold a different point of view without pretending it, that's why I really detest that phrase, positive thinking, because I think, as I mentioned in What the Bleep, positive thinking is really only a thin smear of positive thinking over a boiling cauldron of negative thinking. And, of course, there are no prizes for guessing which attitude is going to win out in our consciousness. So it's hard for us to develop the skill of formulating an absolutely fervently held belief that it's totally contrary to what we're looking, tasting, and feeling and seeing and hearing every day. That's a very alien process to you and I and everyone else on this world, but that is the way reality functions. And I suppose that's the main, if you were singling out anything out of quantum physics and quantum mechanics, it would have to be put at the top of the list, that awareness.
I agree 100%. I think, it's basically time to just throw our TVs and radios out the window and spend this.
Well, not before we get this program out.
Yeah, exactly. So keep your computers. This is an internet, but it does go out over radio shows too. But it's. I think maybe you could just use discernment and turn the channels, because there are some good programs out there. But it's very simple: garbage in, garbage out. And if you're watching soap operas, your life is going to be a soap opera.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what's going on. Unfortunately, people are sitting there doing their chores with their TV blaring, watching these soap operas, and with all this crazy drama and backstabbing and just nonsense going on, and then they turn around and create that in their own life, or they it's I don't know, it's something I think that,
saying to someone here the other day that I'm getting so weary of the type of television. I don't watch much television. I just try and keep in touch with the news and current events, and maybe something on the History or Discovery Channel or whatever. But I said, I'm really discouraged because the whole major television service seems to be dedicated to what people are doing. What's happening with Tiger Woods, what's happening with David Letterman, it's all about individuals and their dramas.
Mm-hmm.
There is no real, for want of a better term, there's no really serious consideration of anything. It's all about what's happening to people. And that's a really depressing thing. If you don't get, or you get very little of people standing outside and considering some serious thing. I mean, television is a wonderful, very powerful medium, as we all accept.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost like a jumbo jet taxiing up and down the runway and never taking off. The medium is being vastly underused compared to what it could do. And there are a lot of people who want to have something more serious, than the dramas of some rock star or whatever.
I agree 100%. It's I know it's even within the that network, with a lot of these, what people will call UFO symposiums and radio shows and things like that, where people are going there to actually get this alternative information. They're getting bombarded with the very same thing they're getting in the mainstream news now, and painting a very, very dark picture of the future and of the off-world visitors, and just on and on and on, and it's just the other side of the coin. It's where's the meat? Where's the empowering shows and the messages and that are every once in a while one pops up, but
yes, but they're rare.
Yeah.
And I think when people, meet these shows and presentations, you can tell that they really appreciate it and want to know more. But this whole fascination with disaster, I mean, even if there were disasters coming, the last thing we want to do, facing them again from quantum physics, is to feel that we're all doomed and that everything's going to disappear and nothing will survive that we have loved and cherished. That's one great way to make sure that it does have a very profound and disastrous effect. So, this is where if we are facing tough times, which I do believe we are, very tough times, then we just need to get our ducks in a row and understand the way consciousness does work, because the fundamental thing, James, I suppose, that we all have to come to terms with is that this world is not a solid, fixed, rocks and stones and trees and earth, etc., and water. That it actually is, it's actually a projection. And this is something that, again, that we find extremely difficult to accept, that it's really some kind of hologram, for want of a better term. And that doesn't mean it's not real. You can be burned to death in a hologram, as I've often said. But the significance of the reality being a hologram is that it's intensely affected by thought. So we have to absolutely be really careful of what we think and accept and profoundly believe. because it's going to have an effect on what we actually experience. So all of this fascination, with doom and gloom and disaster. For instance, even the other day, someone suggested to me that, the famous Bible code that computers working on the Greek or Hebrew text of the Bible, come up with all these apparent prophecies like the assassination of Rabin and so on. But, with all respect to the Bible code, the